Thank you very much. My DG, fellow Rotarians, may I call on past Assistant Governor Eboigbe Etienne-Olaye, who incidentally is the chairman of Vocational Service Committee, and January is Vocational Service Month, to step forward and read to us the four-way test.
My DG, fellow Rotarians and guests, the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendship? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? The four-way test.
Thank you very much, PAG Etiosan, for the four-way test. Let me inform us that our guest speaker is already online from Abuja, and we want to graciously welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Soji Apampa, who is the CEO, Convention on Business Integrity. At the appropriate time, we shall be introducing him. At this time, may I call on a past President Kunle Aliyu, to give us the object of Rotary. Past President Kunle Aliyu, object of Rotary.
The district governor, standing on the existing protocol. The object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise, and in particular, to encourage and foster, first, the development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. Second, high ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. Third, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. And fourth, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, P.P. Kunle Aliyu, for the object of Rotary. May I, at this time, Mr. DG and fellow Rotarians, introduce to us members of this committee that has put this together. And we'll also be recognizing our guests that are online at the appropriate time. But first, let me introduce to you the chairman of this committee, in the person of Rotarian Ibrahima, who was President Rotary Club of Lagos 2018-2019, and is this year the chair of District 910 Ethics in Business and Professions Committee, and very shortly, from July 1, it will be our district secretary, Rotarian Ibrahima. Other members of the committee in attendance, we have PAG Eboigbe Etienne-Olaye, who is the chair of Vocational Service Committee, and the past president of Rotary Club of Surulere Northeast. He is our resource advisor. I have called earlier on past President Kunle Aliyu of the Rotary Club of Akute, who is secretary of this committee. I have past President Benga Ojo, who was a world-class president 2016-2017, and is also a past president of Rotary Club of Akun-Ojo. We have Rotarian Oluwatoyin Adesheun Wosu, who is a public image chair and a member of Rotary Club of Lagos West. We have past Assistant Governor Uyi Showobi, who is also a resource advisor and a member of Rotary Club of Victoria Garden City. We have Rotarian past President Michael F. Young James, the immediate past president of Rotary Club of Ikeja South. We have Rotarian Abiodun Richard Oshinibosi, past president Rotary Club of Omole Golden and chair of DISCON for this year, 2020-2021. We have Mr. Babawale Agbenyogi, the president-elect of Rotary Club of Lagos. We have Rotarian Olusheye Arowolo, the Opportunities President of Rotary Club of Maryland, Ikeja, and Rotarian Adedoyin Abike Adedeji of the Rotary Club of Bagada. Please, a round of applause for us. While we will take time as we go on in the program to recognize those who are online with us, may I now invite the chairman of the committee in person of past President Ibrahima to step forward and give us the welcome address. Rotarian Ibrahima.
Thank you very much. Our Assistant Governor, Kolawole Ojelabi of the Rotary Club of Agege. You've been doing a great job this morning, and I want to say a big thank you as our MC and moderator for today's seminar. Our District Governor, Bola Oyebade, District Governor-elect, Remi Bello, our District Governor nominee, Omotunde Lawson, all our past district governors and district leaders, our friends and guests of Rotary, both in Nigeria and around the world. I want to say a big welcome to today's seminar, Ethics in Business and Professions. One of the cardinal principles of Rotary is to uphold high ethical standards in everything that we do, whether in our personal life or in our business life. So it is not surprising that today we are hosting this seminar to promote ethics in business and the professions. By the way, January is the Vocational Service Month in Rotary. So it explains why we're hosting this seminar today, January 27, 2021. I want to thank the district governor for giving members of this committee the opportunity to serve. We've been working around the clock for today, to be a successful event. And as you would expect, a lot of our guests are joining us online. It's a hybrid seminar. We now live in a virtual world arising from the devastating impact of COVID-19 on the way we live and do business. We continue to pray that our lives will be spared, as COVID-19 is now a grim reaper stuck in our lives on a daily basis. So we thank the district governor for this opportunity to serve. Rotary is all about service. All around the world, Rotarians are people of action, and we create lasting impacts in our different communities, through the projects that we execute in the different areas of focus. We are driven as Rotarians by the core values of Rotary, and they are fellowship, leadership, diversity, service, and integrity. It's important that we live by these values, and you can see the linkage with this seminar, upholding ethics, high ethical standards in everything that we do. At this time, I would like to thank and welcome our guest speaker, Soji Apampa. He's based in Abuja, and of course, he's joining us virtually. We have shared Soji's profile prior to today, and his profile will be read shortly. But just to add, as our moderator and MC said earlier, Soji is an exemplary professional. He's the CEO of Convention on Business Integrity. And what has he been doing for the past 25 years and more? Soji and his team, they have been building and promoting integrity systems out of Nigeria. He's widely traveled, a resourceful guest speaker around the world. And we're truly grateful that he accepted graciously to be a guest speaker today. And I know we have a lot to learn from him on the topic which he has chosen. Can you win in business if you uphold ethics and integrity? So I will be answering that question for us today. At this time, let me acknowledge the role played by Toki Mabogunje, who is a member of my Rotary Club, the Rotary Club of Lagos. Toki is also the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. When I spoke to Toki about this seminar, and I needed to confirm a guest speaker as quickly as possible, she said, "Don't worry, I have a perfect fit for you. Speak to Soji Apampa." And that was exactly what I did. I called Soji, and he has been so gracious, so wonderful, an excellent professional to the core. He wasted no time in accepting our invitation to speak to us today. And I want to say, Soji, I know you are watching from Abuja, and very soon you'll be speaking to us. Thank you for this great honor. On that note, our distinguished guests, Rotarians from Nigeria and around the world, watching this hybrid seminar, there's so much we can take out from today's presentation by Soji Apampa, an expert, on ethical and integrity issues. I want to say a big welcome to the seminar. Please enjoy every minute. Until
Before I invite the district governor, not in terms of seniority, but just to say that's I'm talking about Rotarian Bola Oyebade. We have our district governor-elect, Rotarian Remi Bello, our district governor nominee, Rotarian Omotunde Lawson. And we have past district governor Jeff Bamford from district 9212. We have past assistant governor John Senaya, past assistant governor Ifi Ejezie, past assistant governor Lanre Kazim, past assistant governor Busola Satui, Immediate past President Adurunke Jones Adewale, past President Bisi Taiwo, immediate past President Fatima Hassan, past Assistant Governor Shola Fatuki. We have Mr. Tony again Monwe, Princess Mrs. Susan OFR, immediate past President Sylvia Abdallah, Sheyi Oladimeji Rotarian. We have Onime Rotarian Omoye Abuja. We have Charles Chijide, Beatrice Egbeogu, Babatunde Koiki, Charles Aigbe, Kelly Ekezie, Nora Iko, Obi Ebuka David, Okechukwu Ogbogu, Okunade Nofio, Kehinde Apampa, Kunle Ogunbanjo. We have our past district governor, Abayomi Adewumi, and we have Rotarian Abayomi Shoboale. So may I now invite the district governor to give us his opening remarks. Our district governor, Rotarian Bola Oyebade, you're welcome.
The district governor-elect, district governor nominee, our district leader, fellow Rotarians, guests that are watching us, and in particular our guest speaker, Mr. Soji Apampa, who has graciously accepted to be our guest speaker today. I want to welcome everybody to today's seminar. It's going to be a bumper of revelation to most of us, because like the topic implies, and it's a question, a direct question, if you can win in business, if you uphold ethics and integrity. We know very well that integrity in our country, in the entire world, is a very big issue. And that's the more reason why this committee has packed this particular session together, so that we all can learn, provided we listen enough and pay sufficient attention to what will be said. At the back of my mind, I know very well that when we conclude with this, we will have various answers to most of the things we do and even how we do them. So once again, I want to welcome everybody who are here in person and those that are online watching us and participating virtually. Once again, I will ask you to please sit back as we continue. Do enjoy and enjoy the session in total, 100%. Thank you very much, Mr. MC.
Thank you very much, our DG. Very short and precise. Our DG is not known to be a man of too many words, but whatever words he drop, they resonate and they carry a lot of weight. So DG, thank you very much, sir. The district governor, fellow Rotarians, guests of Rotary, it is now my pleasure to present to us our guest speaker for today in the person of Mr. Soji Apampa, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Convention on Business and Integrity. I will just quickly read a short citation. Mr. Soji Apampa is the CEO and co-founder of the Convention on Business Integrity, CBI, concerned with issues of public accountability and transparency, and to promote ethical business practices in the private sector, and the Integrity Organization, an anti-corruption research and advocacy organization. He is currently the project director, Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, Siemens Support, to which aims to build stronger business collective action against amongst sports users in Nigeria, stronger government compliance environment, and build public-private arrangements for oversight of compliance with the port standard operating procedures and responses to the grievance mechanism. Mr. Pampa is the project director on an Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, funded project in partnership with CBI Innovations Limited and Nestle for the Youth Agripreneurship Development Project, aimed to produce 400 youth and women farmers to increase production on maize and provide additional services to other farmers. Mr. Pampa led the effort to design and pilot between 2012 and 2014 a corporate governance rating system for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The CGRS was approved as part of the rules for listing in the new premium board of the exchange by the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission in 2015 and made mandatory for all listed companies in 2016. In 2018, Mr. Pampa became a member of the steering board of the corporate governance rating system shared by Nigerian Stock Exchange and other members, including a representative of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Augusto & Co., CNBC Africa, and the project director from the Convention on Business Integrity. He was appointed project director in 2017 for the Track, Analyze, Map, and Expose STREAM corruption risk project funded by the UNDP under the EU support to anti-corruption in Nigeria, FED 2012/306-2201 NGAX0 10th EDF. Its working experience covers training, research, consulting, and management in the private and public sectors and civil society. Distinguished Rotarians, led by our district governor, senior Rotarians from across the world, fellow Rotarians, guests of Rotary, it is my pleasure to ask Mr. Soji Apampa, Chief Executive Officer, Convention on Business Integrity, to deliver his address. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Permit me to make my presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation. I hope that it is visible to all. Can you please confirm to me that it is visible?
Yes, it is visible, Mr. Pampa.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so my task this morning is to discuss this intriguing question. Can you win in business if you uphold ethics and integrity? Can you win? So, yeah, let's start with the definition of ethics. What is ethics? To me, it's a system of moral principles, the rules of conduct that guide your actions. And ethics guide you with respect to what actions are right or wrong, with respect to the goodness or badness of your motives. So ethics is a system of moral principles. And this is where people usually have a challenge, because ethics doesn't sound as practical as they would like it. It just sounds like moral injunctions. So how do we apply that to business and professions? Well, it's still a system of moral, business, and professional principles. The rules of conduct that guides people's actions in a business or professional environment. How do you decide what to do? Business and professional ethics guide you with respect to what business or professional actions are right or wrong, and with respect to the goodness and badness of your motives. So the fundamental principle of business ethics is fair and honest business or professional dealings. But that is not all that you need in order to be able to implement business and professional ethics. Typically, what you also need is ethical leadership, because many people just see the moral principles and they say, well, I'm a moral person. But if you are to create a matrix, so on one axis, you put the morality of the person who is in a position of leadership, and on the other axis, you plot their ability to get everything around them to work to moral principles, to work by ethical principles. You will find that some people are able to stay moral wherever they are, but they're not able to control the morality of their environment. Those we will refer to as being ethically passive. They're not able to make a difference. You have some people who are able to insist on and have the right thing done where they are, but they themselves are not moral or ethical. They appear to everyone very easily as hypocrites. And yet, at the end of the day, you also have people who are not only moral in the principles that they follow, but they ensure that within their sphere of influence, everyone does things to a moral standard, to a standard or a set of principles that are ethical. Those are the true ethical leaders. So when you are looking for ethics in business and the professions, it is all about doing what is right and doing the right things. The two go together, and causing those things to happen within your sphere of influence is what brings about the business and professional ethics. So the set of morals, standards, rules, laws, principles, and so on that actually control your choices and behavior in business or professional life are your ethics in business or professions. So if your behavior and choices are consistently bad, then your ethics must be bad. And if your behavior and choices are consistently acceptable or good, they must be emanating from a place of good ethics. Then the question comes, how do I know what is good and what is bad? Are ethics relative or absolute? And how do you determine what is good, acceptable behavior in business? At this point, I'll just give you an example. The story was told of a Swedish minister who got to the till in a supermarket and realized she didn't have her own personal credit card, but paid for groceries using the government-issued one. As soon as she got back to the office, she wrote a check and paid the money back. I've asked so many audiences in Nigeria, did she do anything wrong? And most people say, no, she didn't do anything wrong. But she was fired in Sweden. Why? Because it was an abuse of public funds. So again, what we find to be unacceptable in Sweden, there are questions in people's minds in Nigeria. Then when you think about it as well, a certain African country some lawmakers bought Mercedes-Benz Jeeps at a discount, and the authorities went after them. They were eventually convicted, and they went to jail for buying these Mercedes-Benz Jeeps at significant discount. Why? Because these were discount levels that were not available to the general public. And therefore, it was an abuse of their office and their position. This time, it is not Sweden, it's not Europe, this is South Africa. So when you look at, and in a place like Nigeria, what audiences were also able to look at is that even if they were given those Jeeps for free, it is unlikely anyone will be prosecuted for doing the wrong thing. So we can see that very often what constitutes good ethics, it doesn't translate very easily from one culture to the other. And that's why in professional ethics, we talk about minimum acceptable, internationally agreed standards of behavior. So, because many people complain that in a place like Nigeria, they are more constrained in what they're able to do than other climes. Therefore, they have to be inventive in what they do. And we say that for you to say, I am a doctor, there's a minimum standard of ethical behavior that goes with that profession. If you're not able to uphold that, then you cannot use the title that you're a medical doctor. So we need to understand, and which is why when Nigerians then go to other places and exhibit certain behaviors, eyebrows are raised and people recoil, unable to deal with them in business because they're uncomfortable with what many Nigerians are comfortable with in business and in the professions. So I hope you will agree with me that applying personal ethics can be very difficult. Now imagine applying ethics in a business or in a professional setting. That could be even more difficult than personal ethics. So we've got to look at the power of context. If we look at this framework where you put good apples in a good barrel, most people will agree with you that it is likely that you can preserve the apples for a good while because they're good apples and you've put them in a good barrel. What if you put bad apples in a good barrel? What then happens? Typically, people agree that because they're bad apples, they will continue their decay, and at the end of the day, they will not be conserved for very long. What if you put good apples in a bad barrel? Well, because the barrel is bad, eventually the good apples will also go bad. And it's very clear that bad apples in a bad barrel doesn't work. So I then ask, usually, that Nigerians, are we good apples or bad apples? And at this point, there's usually quite a bit of a stir in the audience and a lot of argument. And some people say Nigerians are good apples, or Nigerians are bad apples, or Nigerians are a mixture of good apples and bad apples. But when I ask, what about Nigeria? Is it a good barrel or a bad barrel? Usually people say the apples are good, it is the barrel that is bad. Whatever the answer is, whether or not Nigeria is a good barrel or a bad barrel, the fact remains that if you put good apples with bad apples, in the end, all of them are going to get decayed and they will not be preserved. Now, if we look at the TI Corruption Perception Index, Nigerians are perceived to have a lot of bad apples because the rating that we have as a country is 27 out of 100. So almost suggesting that out of any 100 that you pull out of Nigeria, you would only get 27 good apples. There's no country that has only good apples. Even, is it Denmark that tops the charts, only scores 95 out of 100, meaning if you took out 100, you'd probably find 95 good ones, but there will still be the 5 bad ones. So except you do something, if you leave good apples with bad apples, we're going to always go from bad to worse, which is why ethical leadership is one of the most important ingredients to be able to keep integrity and ethics in business and the professions. So on the face of it, are people justified? It would appear that those who are not paying much attention to ethics and integrity are justified. Why? Because there are barriers, institutional barriers, for instance. How professionals or business people win and retain business does not receive sufficient regulatory attention to warrant change. And not enough buyers of business and professional services require integrity as a condition for the engagement. In fact, some will tell you, I would like an accountant that knows them in the tax office, or I would like a lawyer that knows the judge. So when you are operating in that kind of context, it could be almost forgiven for you to feel like it is an uphill battle. It's going to be very difficult. So for most people in business and the professions in Nigeria, acting with integrity is seen as a moral but impractical nice to have, given the environment. They believe that the stimulus for change will have to come external to the current environment in order for enough participants to want to change, because nobody seems to care the way they do their business. Also on the issue of buyers, that, well, maybe if we have a critical mass of potential customers who require integrity as a condition for engagement, then we will change our practices. And some say, well, there'll have to be sufficient numbers of people who want to see firms and businesses do the right thing and derive a practical benefit from it. Then maybe it will justify the time and money that is required for us to build certifiable anti-corruption compliance or certifiable ethics and integrity compliance. So, but on the face of it, it is choosing between my self-interest, the interest of others, and what comes out in the common good. Or let me translate that into simple questions like the four-way test from Rotary. For instance, what I'm about to do, is it compliant? Is it legal? Will I be breaking any rules or regulations? Is it against the policy of my company? Is it responsible? How will it affect other parties? What if everybody were doing the same thing? Is it against my principles? Is it generally acceptable? How will it look on the newspaper or on YouTube or Facebook? Will I be ashamed to tell my peers? What will my family think? Yes, this is one way of looking at the whole subject. But if we want to get business to operationalize it, we're going to have to do a bit more. There has to be a consequence management framework. And we have to define the risks. We have to prevent our ethics and integrity from being, the standards from being flouted. We have to be able to detect and monitor deviant behavior. We have to be able to respond and put in corrective action, do root cause analysis to understand why it is happening, and communicate a resolution and make sure that we are redressing the situation once and for all. And we have to check what we're doing against metrics and benchmarks, preferably international metrics and benchmarks, checking our policies, practices, and procedures that they're still in place. I know all of this would probably look to us as nice to have, but impractical for the Nigerian situation. So I would end my discussion by looking at the work of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network for you to see what is actually possible within Nigeria. So the Convention on Business Integrity represents the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, which is a global business network that is working towards the vision of a maritime industry free of corruption that enables fair trade to the benefit of society at large. So this was established in 2011, and MACN is comprised of vessel-owning companies and now also flag states and other stakeholders within the main sectors of the maritime industry and other companies in the maritime industry, including cargo owners and service providers, and so on. It has over 146 member companies at the moment that represent main parts of the shipping industry. They own or manage over 8,000 vessels. They operate approximately 40% of all global tonnage, all the tonnage that is moved on the seas. At least 40% is a member of a MACN, and 75% of containerized cargo. So they're a big global lobby group. They collect data on corrupt demands globally, and they've collected over 16,000 incidents of corrupt demands globally. Now, here's the catch. Many of them fall under the UK Bribery Act, where failure to prevent bribery is an offense. And the sort of offense that the leaders of the organizations, if found guilty, could actually face jail time for it. So, and also the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and some others as well. Now, this is making these organizations change their behaviors, because in the old days, historically, there's always been a chummy relationship between vessels, the captains, the crew on board the vessels, and the government officials at the ports. And they freely give gifts and receive gifts from one another, and even exchange money and cigarettes between each other. But since the UK Bribery Act and also the UN Convention Against Corruption, that also deals with facilitation payments and outlaws them, there has been a change in behavior. However, in Nigeria, most of the officials have not received the memo, and they continue to act as though it was business as usual. So what they did between 2012, when the project started in Nigeria, and now, was to identify in the ports, what are the standard operating procedures? How should these things work? And negotiating with the Nigerian government and the officials on what do we do if we find that these procedures are not being followed. So they also came up with a grievance mechanism called the Port Support Portal. It's the PSSP. So if you look at pssp.ng, you will find it online, and there it's managed by Nigeria Shippers Council. You will find all the standard operating procedures and the grievance reporting mechanism, plus some service level agreements that if you complain, this is what we will do within certain timelines as well. So we help the members to set up a local help desk. So all vessels coming to Nigeria, let us know prior to arrival, like 7 days before, when they will arrive, which port or terminal. So we track them while they are at the ports and terminals. So if there's any incident, we're able to pick it up immediately and escalate it in real time, and so on and so forth. And we manage that process all the way while they're in Nigerian waters and until they leave. And on the anonymous reporting data that MACN members have been putting out, by August last year, there were 91 incidents 71 of which came in the first quarter, and it reduced, of course, as the lockdown came in into force last year. But the interesting thing is that we ended the year with having a certain number of incidents. And I think by the end of the year, this data only goes up to the start of September. But by the end of the year, we had some 49 vessels that called Nigerian ports who were members of MACN and reported. And they had 13 incidents. And I'm happy to tell you that all incidents were resolved between 1 and 4 hours. And none of the vessels had to make a corrupt payment in order to get their vessels cleared through Nigerian ports. Now, contrast this to the situation about 3 years ago, where almost 90% of vessels calling were having incidents. And you will see from the previous chart that actually in 2019, it was as high as ever, all the incidents that were being reported. And then it used to take as long as 3 days with the attendant costs to the vessels to clear the vessel when they had an issue that they did not want to pay, make a corrupt payment against. It took up to 3 days. So it's a great saving today that they're coming in and out of Nigerian ports with the help of Nigeria Shippers Council, Customs, and all the agencies at the ports, where they can come in and go out and be dealt with expeditiously, and they will go, especially if it is not an official payment that is being demanded, they will be able to sail away without making that kind of payment. So we also now have introduced a user experience diary. All of these are available on the Convention on Business Integrity website, or maritime-acn.org, which is the website of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network. And we have an application that you can download while doing cargo clearance, and you can give feedback in real time. And if you need help, then the help desk will also swing into action to make sure. Now, a lot of this is now the subject of sting operations between the ICPC and the Shippers Council. And as recent as November last year, 4 immigration officers were nabbed for illegally taking cargoes, that is frozen fish, off a trawler that they went to inspect against the rules, against the standard operating procedures. They were arrested by the ICPC for doing so. So Nigeria has turned a leaf on this area. So what would my conclusions be? Number one, that winning in business and professional dealings in Nigeria, when upholding ethics and integrity, is entirely possible. That's number one. Number two, it requires collective action by business, professionals, with elements from government and civil society in order to be able to replicate what we have done in the maritime sector. It requires agreement over standard operating procedures, effective grievance handling, and a consequence management framework, which means if I then flout those standard operating procedures, will anything come of it? Will something be done? And how do I ensure that it doesn't repeat itself again in future? Doing so doesn't make corruption disappear, but it provides an alternative that supports ethics and integrity. And what we are finding today is that corruption is existing side by side with the system of integrity. And until and unless we're able to drive even more traffic, more of business and professionals using the path of ethics and integrity, then some will continue to get caught in the process of corruption. But we know that it requires a mass adoption of the system of integrity that has been built in order for impact to take place and to reduce the risks and costs of doing the right thing. So in the beginning, the vessel captains were terrified of standing up to the authorities, but today it is commonplace for them to stand up to them, and even when they are threatened, for them to stand their ground, because they know there's a help desk, and that behind the help desk is a system that works, that helps to escalate the issues, ensure that the standard operating procedures are followed, and anything outside of that does not stand. And that way, we don't have to fight corruption. We don't have to fight the corrupt. Instead, we build a system of integrity and we continue to uphold it and to popularize it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the end of my submission. Thank you. Over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pampa. Well, I don't really know what to describe or how to describe the talk you've just given to us. But I just want to say that I've been educated and I've gained a lot from this. I know that from the very beginning, you gave a definition of what is ethics, and you describe it as a system of moral principles. So that is very important for us to know as we look at the totality of your talk. Now, I just want to do a kind of recap of your talk. So in your speech, you told us that the principle of business ethics is fair and honest. Ethics could be absolute or relative, depending on from which side of the divide you're looking at it. And you cited the case of Sweden, when a city minister had to use his official card, his official debit card, to pay for groceries instead of using his own personal card. And because he abused public trust, he was fired because of it. But if that had happened in a country like Nigeria, would the minister have been fired? So it depends on which side of the divide you are looking at it. You went further to say that standards are neither absolute nor universal. People need to agree a minimum set of acceptable standards. And so that is going to guide us in making an understanding of ethics more uniform. So applying ethics in business, it could even be more difficult than in personal application. You noted that barriers to doing the right thing could be institutional, situational, or behavioral. You went ahead to give what you describe as ethical choice framework. And you gave some decisions checklist that are asking questions the propriety or impropriety of our actions as to whether they are ethical or they are unethical. You now dovetail the discussion into the work your organization is doing at the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network and how some of the action that have been taken had helped to sanitize post-administration in Nigeria and in the countries where you have the Maritime Action Network. Told us that integrity and corruption work side by side, but it depends on which you want to hold there? Do you want to hold corruption, or you want to hold your integrity to be there? And you now concluded that the MSCN work that you do works because the standard operating procedures work. And so because of that, you have been able to make a lot of success in that area. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please can we give Mr. Pampa a round of applause again? So there have been some questions that have been raised following the lecture by Mr. Pampa. So I would like to call on the immediate past president of Rotary Club of Ikeja South, Rotary Michael F. Young James, to come and coordinate the question and answer session. Rotary F. Young.
Thank you, my AG. My DG, thank you for joining us online and now joining us in person. On the platform, we have 2 questions I would like our guest speaker to take up. The first question is from PAG Shola Fatoki, and it says, do you think professionals in Nigeria who abide strictly with ethical and moral principles of his profession can be successful? That is like asking the same question that we asked at the beginning. My guest speaker, please, can you take the second one so you can take both of them together? The second is from AG John Senaya, our district PR head, our public image chair. What is the role of culture and tradition in the adherence or flouting of internationally accepted moral and professional ethics? Why is the Nigerian case so obviously different? Thank you. Please, you can raise your hand on the chat room or send your questions to the chat room and we'll take them. Thank you.
Okay. Can I go ahead and respond to these 2 in the meantime?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me start with the second, culture and tradition. I think that I mentioned in the course of the presentation that the culture and tradition was one of gift giving and one of friendly, how do I say it? Officials and ship captains working hand in hand with each other. That was the culture and tradition handed down from centuries. That had been the relationship, that the ship captain will do whatever it is to smoothen the inspections, and the officials were largely their friends and will also help facilitate a good turnaround at the ports. And gifts, money, cigarettes, all sorts of things changed hands. So what changed in the global one is the change in the regulatory environment. The fact that a law came out that even if it is your agent in a foreign place that bribes to your benefit, then you have failed to prevent bribery. And failure to prevent bribery under the UK Bribery Act is punishable under that law with as much as a prison sentence for the leadership of that organization, which includes the chairman, the board members, the managing director, and so on. So faced with that level of risk from a very credible threat, the industry came together and said, we have to do something about this. And by coming together as an industry lobby, they started to look at all of those places where the corruption is high. Yes, they used to participate in this corruption themselves, but they knew they could not continue that way anymore. And they have now been working to try to clean up that interface between the vessels and the port's officials. So yes, culture and tradition plays a big role in setting up the problem, but culture and tradition also plays a big role in potentially hindering the solution. So in this case, there was buy-in from the presidency and all the tops of the agencies concerned. And the project began in 2012 and continued to gain momentum. And in present day now, the Nigeria Shippers Council, as the economic regulator of the ports, has now been empowered by the presidency and the Ministry of Transport to be the lead agency with ensuring compliance with the standard operating procedures. So this is the development that has now come out of it. But we're finding that wherever you are able to get your standard operating procedures in place, together with the stakeholders, you have a grievance mechanism that is agreed, you will have to grind through the process of making it work. And that is through collective action. That in itself creates a new culture and creates a new tradition. So the Nigerian case is so different for the reasons I've given, that it seems nobody cares. And there is no compliance framework. There's nothing to act as any kind of deterrent. So if you are an organization that believes in ethics and integrity, what you have to do is to come together with like-minded groups, with the government officials and civil society, and drive through proactively some kind of reform in your industry in order to enable you to act with ethics and integrity. But it is not that that has to happen before you behave with ethics and integrity. You're doing it because that is the way that you run your business, and you're now trying to ensure a level playing field. There are many companies in Nigeria that, even though it might curb and curtail the amount of business they can do, they would rather go the path of ethics and integrity than get involved with what was going on. What was not part of my resume is that I used to be the managing director of SAP, the German software company in Nigeria. And I know that we had our targets. We had to meet our targets, but we also could not break any of the ethical rules that the company stood for. So it was a tough tension to navigate. And we found that after a while, but what we did was we kept building relationships with all our stakeholders, making sure those relationships were strong, but they were cordial, but not on the basis of exchanges, corrupt exchanges. So sometimes you try to bid for something, they tell you, don't worry, that one already has an owner. And you know, it's not for clean business. And sometimes you don't bid and there's still time, and they say, why aren't you bidding? And you say, well, they're all the same. It will all be corrupt. They tell you, no, you never know the work of God. You better bid. There's an opportunity. Usually it means there's no owner, or God at the top has not said that you must favor this company or that company. And that was how a lot of us survived, by picking and choosing what we bidded for, because we can't win everything because of your standards. So we found we had to work extra hard, much harder than the others who felt corruption was an okay thing because they are just victims. They are not part of the drivers of it. They're just victims of a system. So in terms of whether a professional can be successful, yes, you can be, because I know a construction firm, they're called Construction Kaiser. They never did public sector work because of corruption. They only worked for private sector. One day, Lagos State having studied all their construction projects, went to look for them and invited them to come and bid, simply on the quality of the work that they do. And that's how they got into their first public sector project. And they had to give their terms and conditions. We don't give, we don't take. If it's fine, we'll bid. Otherwise, leave us alone. We're happy with the small area where we're operating. So you will find businesses like that. I know a hospital chain out in Warri, Benin, and Port Harcourt who also did not get involved in the corruption. One day, the oil companies found out that there was a racket between certain staff and the hospitals, and they were looking for a company that would not compromise. After years of trying to get in, they came to look for them and they gave them the job simply on the basis of their integrity. So yes, it might appear at first that you lose out, but in the end, if you do a good job, you do things right and you do the right things, people will seek you out for that in the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guest speaker. There are a couple of questions here, but I think your long analogy has covered most of them. But there's this one about by Rotarian Adewale Aziz Abdul, and he says, how do you implement or ensure employees behave ethically despite all the ethical practices documented? Some just behave irrationally and put ethics aside. Please guide us.
Okay, you cannot, ethics is not what you espouse. As I said in the beginning, that it's not the morality of the chief executive. It is the system that the chief executive puts in place to ensure that people do not flout those standards. So it is a very active thing, and you have to set up a compliance system. If you set up a compliance system, then you must be ready to ensure that you can detect. Part of it is ensuring that you can detect any deviance. And if you detect deviance, everybody will be watching for what you do about it. If you don't deal with it decisively, it will continue and you will be ignored. So let's just understand that it's not just espousing ethics, it is putting in place a consequence management framework that goes with the ethical pronouncements.
Thank you very much, our guest speaker. DG, fellow Rotarians, you agree with me that the guest speaker had done wonderfully well and treated this topic with the best form possible. I would therefore urge us to give him a resounding round of applause once again. Thank you very much, Mr. Akwankpa. On this note, I would like to invite our district governor-elect, Rotarian Ismaila Remi Bello, to make a presentation to the guest speaker. Thank you.
The district governor in absentia, the chairman of ethics committee of the district, committee members, Mr. Shoji Pampa. I'm not sure if you will still recollect my name or my face. Let me remove the face mask. I spoke to you some time ago. We have a common friend, Paul Babatunde Ruashe.
Ah, yes.
You remember?
Yes,
I
sir.
spoke to you about grazing cattle grass.
Yes. Yes.
You remember very well.
Very vividly, sir.
Yes, just to put into practice what we've been discussing, whereby we can do what is ethical. We don't want to behave to others that are creating problems here and there. Unfortunately, I wasn't here in person when you were making your presentation, but I listened to read online fully without taking anything out of removing anything, let me say, removing anything from your presentation. It's a well-packaged presentation. Like we've been told, ethical behavior is something that we valued so much in Rotary. It's an integral part of our standard of living. We appreciate the presentation you made today, and I want to assure you that you are not done yet. We are still coming back.
Thank you
You
very
should be
much.
prepared for us as much as possible, as long as we are yet to score 95% like those other countries. So we will always come to you for a kind of reminder on how to behave ethically. On behalf of the Rotary District 9110 Ethics Committee and the district governor himself, Bola Oyebade, it's my pleasure to present to you this special appreciation award. Is written thus. I think it can be captured for you to see it. It's in your name. Soja Pampa, CEO Convention on Business Integrity. Being our distinguished guest speaker at the Rotary International District 9110 Ethics in Business and Professions Seminar 2020-21, signed by our district governor. I present to you, I think you stretch your hand forward that you have received it. Congratulations. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
So our guest speaker, as you can see, and all our guests around the world, I have gleefully received this award on behalf of our guest speaker who is in Abuja. I'm in Lagos. But you can be sure this plaque will get to you. And we're also going to send 5 copies together with the plaque. This is the program brochure for today. It's all of 20 pages, for this seminar. So 5 copies of this, and this special award to appreciate your time and scholarship will be sent to you in Abuja. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Over to you, Mike.
Thank you very much, my chairman. Thank you very much, my DG. Before we go on with the rest of the program, I would like to introduce and recognize a few Rotarians and guests who joined us while the guest speaker was delivering his paper. I would like to recognize our resource advisor, PAG Uyishu Obi, Opportunities President, RC Ikeja GRA, Alex Abba, immediate past President, Charles Aigbe of District 9141, Rotarian Titi Lokpe Okubadejo, Rotary Club of Ota, Taiwo Akinimodo, Rotarian Adegoke Adewoyin, Precious Josiah, past President Ezine Obioha, Onene Osila Obele Oshoko, Ezenwa Okpara, Alex Ajibo, Oluwakemi Brahima, Chimezim Okoro, Banjo Oluyinka. Thank you very much all for joining us today. And it gives me great pleasure on behalf of our committee to express, my district governor. my DG, district leaders, fellow Rotarians, and guests, I would like to permit my district governor to give us the final words and round off this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Effiong. This is yours. My district governor-elect, fellow Rotarians, viewers that are not Rotarians also that are viewing us online, I want to thank you for your rapt attention. Thank you for listening attentively. It is my own belief that all of us have learned from the presentation of our guest speaker, Mr. Soji Akwankwa, whose delivery all of us can attest to is 100% par excellence. For those of us that are here in person, I'd like us to once again give him a big round of applause. And those viewing virtually also, I want to believe you can avail him a big round of applause as well. Ethics in business is something that is very, very serious, especially here in Nigeria. And the only thing we all can do is to ensure that we play our parts. If it is a possibility, the guest speaker asked, indeed, he was able to prove to us that it is possible. All we need to do is to severally and collectively play our parts. And that's the part of Rotary. If all of us that are in Rotary are able to play our parts, with over 3,000 of us here in our district, and with close to about 12,000, over 12,000 in Nigeria, are playing a part on a daily basis, I have the belief that very soon Nigeria will become a better place. And that's the more reason why I would like to ask clubs to also organize workshops, seminars of this nature, so that the entire district, in our district now 10 Nigeria, Lagos State and Ogun State, with a population of over 30 million people, we begin to think better and act better. It's on this note that I would like to gradually wind this off and ask Mr. Chair if he has any other thing to thank anybody for. Other than that, nothing? Okay. Perhaps there are some announcements of other presentation he would like to make. Mr. Chair, please.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause for our district governor. Our DG gave us this assignment, and they whispered to me that we have done very well. So DG, sir, thank you for the opportunity to serve. I want to also say a big thank you to the chair, Vocational Service Committee in our district, past Assistant Governor, Etio Saibo. Thank you for your support. Of course, our district governor-elect, he's been exceptional, a great leader in our district. And by the special grace of God, I'll be serving as his district secretary from July 1, when the next Rotary year begins. He's been a great inspiration to Rotarians in our district. Before we leave, because we are winding down now, it's Michael Effiong James that is doing the vote of thanks. I know he started already. But I want to specifically recognize and appreciate a gentleman, is a Rotarian, a past president, is the chair of DISCON 2020-21, is the chairman and chief executive of our Bellinis Limited, an events production company. The entire hybrid broadcast today that has been wonderfully seamless was made possible by Abiodun Oshiniboshi for almost next to nothing. Please let us appreciate him. He's a great man, a great mind, and a wonderful Rotarian, a gift to our district. He continues to serve in different capacities. We just want to appreciate you and say a big thank you for this great job you have done. Ideally, his invoice was heavily discounted by over 80%. I would say thank you, Abiodun Oshiniboshi. God bless you. On that note, Mike, over to you.
My chair, past president, Abraham. Please, a round of applause for my chairman. He's almost, sorry. he's almost finished the job. But like all members of the committee who are here to just rise for us to give them a round of applause. It's not been easy. Please, can you, on behalf of all of us, thank the members of the, please, let's give them a round of applause. My DG, district leaders, fellow Rotarians, I would just like to express our immense thanks to all those who have made today's occasion very, very special and successful. To our sponsors and our donors, we thank you. We thank FCMB. We thank FCMB. We thank Toki Mabogunjanko. We thank Abelini once again. We thank Deluch and Tuch. We thank Chebi Chev. We thank Business Directory Limited, powered by Global Digital Brands. We thank PCL Nigeria & Co. And of course, we thank Adna Hotels. We say a big thank you to all of you and our donors especially, because without you, today might not have been very possible and successful. To all our fellow Rotarians who have joined us, left their very busy schedules to be with us today, we say a very big thank you. To the district staff, we thank you for bending over backwards for making today go well. And to our guest speaker, Mr. Soji Akpankpa, who has inspired us today with his intellectually stimulating paper, emphasizing that indeed you can still become successful Rotarian. I'll therefore today be inviting you to fellowship with my very special and dear club, Rotary Club of Ikeja South. Arise, O Nigeria, follow thee to serve.